Good evening, spooks and spookettes. Your host with the most, Count Rahoon, is here, and it is time for yet another feature of fright. I need to take some time to thank our patrons: Yancy Pearson, Morgan Mitchell, Rhonda Gentry, Nicole Johnson, Courtney O'Halloran, Lucas Lanius, Tyler Laney, and Stephen Duke. Join the ranks of the undead and become a patron. Log on to patreon.com/Drahoon to find the tier level that best suits you. Also, a quick announcement, spooks and spookettes. We will not be having an episode released on October the 25th. We are pushing back our regularly scheduled episode to October the 31st. Why would we be putting an episode out on Halloween? Well, it turns out that your Count has been working on a secret experiment along with our friends at the Lost Signal Society podcast. Our respective shows, along with the Boston Harbor Horror Podcast and Black Clock Audio Tales, are teaming up this Halloween to give to you, our spooks and spookettes and fans of another moniker from all the other shows, a very exclusive Halloween special. We are putting together a big horror anthology episode that we are going to have released on each of our respective feeds. I am contributing a story, the Lost Signal Society is contributing a story, as well as Black Clock Audio and the Boston Harbor Horror Podcast. We each have a story that we are throwing into the mix, and each story has to do with Bigfoot. It's very exciting, spooks and spookettes. Hopefully a wonderful surprise to cap off your Halloween season. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the heart of the matter, and hopefully you won't feel the need to drive a stake through it. This evening, we have yet another edition of Interviewed by a Vampire. Our guest this evening is the owner of one of the biggest haunted attractions in the country. Located in Lakeshore, Wisconsin, Scare USA not only provides a good scare for the surrounding community, but also some invaluable history and charitable outreach to make the world a better, and ironically a less scarier place. Here is the founder and owner of Scare USA, Mr. John Schwartz Jr. John, welcome to Count Rahoon's feature of fright.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So let's get right into it. How did Scare USA get started?
Well, that's a very good question. Scare USA was formed, I would say, when I was a child. I started having these ideas of wanting to have a haunted house, and I've always worked and helped out other haunted houses around my area as I was growing up. And I ended up developing Scare USA and saying, hey, I want to do this later on in my life, but I want to gain experience. And when the time is right, then I'll start Scare USA. So what I ended up doing was working for other haunted houses for many years. And when the time was right, that's when Scare USA was started, and it's become what it is now today.
So that's interesting. So tell me real quick, if you can, in your past experience for working for other haunted houses, would you say that it was sort of a crash course in learning what to do and what not to do to make a successful haunted house? Or haunted attraction, I should say.
Haunted attraction. Yeah, we've got some little bit of heat for calling a haunted house if it's not actually a house, but it's just a generic description. But yeah, haunted attraction. I've built over the years several different haunted attractions and some haunted houses. Yeah, I've learned a lot, and I've learned what to do, and really I've learned what not to do. What I've learned the most is you got to treat people with the utmost respect. If you don't know how to treat people right, you're never going to go anywhere in a business. And the things we've learned what to do, the things that do work, I mean, that's, to me, it's pretty clear. But over the course, I've been doing this now for 21 years this season. And I started when I was really, really little. But I just pay attention. You pay attention to the details. You constantly work on your craft. It's not just something you can whip up in a couple months. It's a year-round preparation. So I'm always communicating with, we've got lighting designers, sound engineers. I've worked with theater companies. That's what I do with my normal everyday job. It's theater and sound. So I've been very grateful to have all these other areas of background to really benefit and beef up Scare USA. So it all comes together because of everything that I've done when I wasn't at the haunted attraction.
So, hitting on that point a little more, it's important to point out that Scare USA is it was named one of the top 31 best haunted attractions in America. And with that being said, that is a huge accomplishment, by the way. It should be reiterated. What do you think sets you apart from all the others?
That's a very good question. And it's a question that we have, over the course of a few years, been able to answer more defined. We are in a building that used to build ships and boats, big fishing tugs. And it happens to be a family-owned building. There was hundreds and hundreds of boats that were built in the building. And so, once again, I'm so grateful that my uncles, my father, my grandfather, and great-grandfather, they left everything behind. They just shut the doors, and it became a storage unit. So all the machines were still there. My great-grandpa's office is still there. Everything untouched. So we've got all these artifacts. We've got the history. And that's really what we're bringing to life. It's not just a haunted attraction. You come here, and you get to see, it's like a mini museum almost. You go walk through the halls into these themed rooms, and it's just very different on that level, because most haunted attractions, you don't get that kind of a history when you're touring. So I would say that's probably the biggest point in how we are different than maybe other haunted attractions. Other than that, it's how you treat your volunteers. It's how you treat the people around you. As a group, we are incredibly honored to be part of Don't Be a Monster. And we also work with Gumby's Cure for Cancer. It's a local nonprofit charity. So we are heavily invested into our local community, which is a huge plus for everybody involved.
And I do want to talk about your, shall we say, non-horror extracurricular activities. But real quick, I just want to learn a little bit more about sort of the inner workings of the haunted attraction business, so to speak. For you, and the reason I ask this because I've noticed a lot of the haunted attractions in the area in which I broadcast, some of them actually change their themes every year. So sometimes they sort of have a twisted fairy tale theme or a slasher theme. And I was wondering if Scare USA offers that, or do you have some of the, shall we say, the same formula, so to speak, every year?
Yeah. We're trying a few new things, and it's going to start this year. Scare USA has only been around for a couple years, and the industry is changing. It's always changing, and you always got to find ways to please the customers and to keep them coming back. Our main attraction is just experiencing the Schwartz Marine. That's the name of the building that we're in. That's our theme for this season. We have on Halloween this year, we're doing a special candlelight tour, and it's going to be set up. There's going to be thousands of LED candles throughout the entire attraction so that customers can come back on Halloween night to experience that. That's a completely different experience than the typical main event show. And then the first weekend of November, we're going to do a blackout. A lot of haunted attractions do that, but we're going to change it up a little bit, and we'll promote that in a couple of weeks so that people get to experience. That's, I guess, a third attraction. But in the future, we're talking 2020, we're going to be adding on outside. So we're going to have an outdoors attraction, potentially 2 outdoors attractions. And the second attraction, we will announce the theme on that next season, but it's something that I've personally never seen done before. And it's also a tradition within the Lakeshore community in Manitowoc County here. There used to be an old house. They would display incredible amounts of effort on their front porch, and it drew thousands of people to their front porch every year. And this is something, like I'm saying, Scare USA was sort of developed when I was a child, but that's something that was going on when I was a child. So it's something I want to bring back to life that used to be in the community so that everybody, at least right now, could experience it. So we're going to do that next year. A lot of things to look forward to.
I have to say, John, from our conversation, it seems to me that Scare USA really is so much more than just a haunted attraction. I mean, there seems to be a lot for just about everybody, not just horror fanatics, but maybe history buffs and just people in the Lakeshore area that really love their community. I think you're doing something very special.
Well, yeah, thank you. And I try to give back, and that's the only thing that you can do. I'm trying to show my heart. I'm trying to be genuine because ultimately, I feel as a person, that's what I have to do. I gotta help people. That's part of my purpose. I mean, we can help the community. We've got a couple people who are in recovery that are volunteers at Scare USA, and I gravitate towards that because I think that affects a lot of families, but it's affected my family in ways that I have to do something, anything possible, just to help people. And this is a place, Scare USA is a place where we're not just about a haunted attraction. We're not just about the blood and the gore. I mean, I love that stuff. We all love that stuff. That's probably the thing that we all have in common. But we have a lot more in common, and that's we are here to not just help people, but to maybe educate them, to show them that we're not just a haunted house. History buffs, you darn right. They can come over here. We're probably going to start doing more behind-the-scenes tours so that people who don't necessarily like getting scared can still enjoy the set design, enjoy the history. We might do more of that because we are to build a lot of marine life stuff. And there is a calling for that. People do like to hear about that.
So you were sort of mentioning it just a second ago, and I really want to talk more about it because it seems that this interview is it's going in a different direction, which I like. You mentioned about giving. Well, you mentioned about giving back, and I think that is very important, and it's something we don't really talk enough about on this show, and we really ought to, because if it wasn't for the spooks and spookettes out there, we wouldn't have a show here. But in your case, you're doing so much for your community. Like you said, providing a space for some of your volunteers that are going through recovery. And we sort of hinted about it a minute ago about your anti-bullying campaign. It was Stop Being a Monster. Is that the name of it? I'm sorry.
Yeah. It was Don't Be a Monster.
Don't Be a Monster, excuse me. So let's talk a little bit more about that and sort of how Scare USA sort of edged its way into this territory, this sort of philanthropic area, for lack of a better term.
Well, right. Yeah. Don't Be a Monster was formed through 13th Floor Productions, and it's a program that is amongst a couple haunted attractions throughout America. And we are just a supporter. There's two different levels. There's a supporter, and then there's the partner. And we have been trying to reach that partnership level so that we can bring a program to our community to not just educate people about bowling. We all know what bowling is, but it's how to handle it. It's how to stand up, not just for yourself, but for others. So it's really to bring that program to the communities that are most affected by it is really the ultimate goal for that, because let's face it, it's everywhere. If we can teach the younger generation how to at least how to respond to things like that, because I feel like we don't give enough information, at least on that topic. So I mean, we've as a group really wanted to help out the bully world. It seems to be like it's a popular topic nowadays, but it's just more or less, it's very, very popular because there's a lot of things that happen and people are starting to talk about it more. It used to just get thrown underneath the carpet and forgotten about, or just, you're tough it up, you're fine. Like, it's not, because even I think adults today are bullied, and that doesn't really get recognized either. So the program, Don't Be a Monster, if you want to donate, you can go to don'tbeamonster.org. You can also go to scareusa.com. We've got all that information just a couple clicks away. So that's really all we have for the Don't Be a Monster program. We also have sort of an internal program. If you look at, I don't know if you've already looked at our website, scareusa.com, you click join our team, and then it shows you a little bit more in depth of who we are. And if you cross off the word S in the word scare, you get the word care. And that's ultimately the what's fueling all of us. That's adding everything to us. So it's ultimately showing your heart, showing that you care. And it starts, don't be a monster. It could be through recovery. It could be through all this stuff.
I have used the term scares that care on this show. Of course, I know that that's not my moniker, but I wish I sort of made that up, because if I did, I might have an extra nickel or two lying around. But but I digress. So let's get back on the haunted attraction real quick, if we may. So I'm interested to know, you sort of mentioned that this is a year-round thing, really, in terms of setting it up. So I just kind of want to pick your brain and find out how long it takes to set up something on the scale that you have, and how long are you guys actually in operation yearly?
Yeah, so it's funny that we just adjusted our permits through the city so that we can do even more. And it's going to be more in the future, just not right now. Mm-hmm. You can pick my brain. I like that. We spend the off season. We're in Wisconsin, so we have some really harsh weather most days in the wintertime. So we'll sit in the back room and we will spend hours and days and weeks, months making custom costumes. I think we have probably 75% of our stuff is in-house made. You're not going to see any store-bought costumes. You're not going to see any masks. Everything is in-house. Sometimes we'll ship out parts to throughout the country who are better at. I got a guy who's better with like wig making, so he'll put the hair on the costumes. Or somebody that's really good with eyeballs. I have him do eyeballs, and he's in North Carolina. So I work with a lot of different people with making costumes. But as far as building the sets, we spend about 6 to 8 months renovating, and typically we renovate 50% of the actual attraction. However, for 2019, we've renovated 75%, which is more than we've ever done. It does take a lot of time, and we have an insane amount of detail that you can't even see it. You can't see it all. You just can't. There's no way. I should do a prop count to see how many thousands of props we have. It's insane how much time we put into it, because the point of that is you want to make it feel like it's real. When you're touring the haunted attraction, you want every set or the general experience to feel like you're actually walking through the building that built ships, or you're walking through sets that really feel like a garage. You just don't, it's not just black walls. It's legit head to toe, left to right, all around detail. So if you as a customer are going through, you're going to feel like you're really walking through these sets, including the costumes. You enhance that experience, that's going to make it feel like it's real, which also, the more detail, I always say, the more detail you have, the appropriate detail, that offsets your mind a little bit as a person, and you get distracted. So maybe that's like a better opportunity to get a better scare as a performer. So.
And speaking of sets, we had talked previously, leading up to this interview, that you have actually hosted several film shoots out at Scare USA. And I was wondering if we could talk a little bit more about the specific movies that actually made their way out there in Lakeshore.
Yeah, we've had, now this is a little bit different. I mean, I've been in featured films like Public Enemies, and I worked with the Transformers set in Milwaukee, and it wasn't anything too in detail. It was just a couple things here and there. We, as Scare USA, I get a lot of phone calls to do short films or music videos. I think we've got 3 music videos that are going to be shot inside Scare USA this coming season. And I don't really know the name of the bands. I know one of them is from the UK, and they're on some tour. I forget their name. But that's so cool. We had Where the Great Spirits Live. That was a short film. And I'm trying to think of the other one. There was one called Two Rivers. And we've helped out with those films. Sometimes it may not be all on site at Scare USA, but we'll bring what we have to certain locations, because when you're filming things like that, not everything is in a warehouse. Or in a set like that. We did a lot of shots out on Lake Michigan, like the beach. So we had our makeup crew out there doing some blood along the beach. We've done some. I'm trying to think what we had. There was a hotel shot. That thing was insane. So yeah, we just work with a lot of different short films, most likely. But this one particular lady, her name is Melanie. She just, I believe, sold off the 2 or 3 films that we were a part of to a company. I'm kind of at a loss for words here. And it's now available on Blu-ray and DVD. I'm not sure if it's on Netflix yet or not. But the short films seem to be sprouting and getting more and more attention, which is great, because feature films, they're very expensive, but it's just neat to see. And we'll continue doing that. I've done a couple costumes for some short films outside of Wisconsin. Just sent them costumes. I did a big Dracula, or not a Dracula, well, it kind of was a Dracula. It was like a big demon with fangs. And it was just a costume that they used in a film. They sent it over, and we redid it, repainted it, and gave it back to them. So that was cool. We do a lot of things like that. I did a couple gloves, special gloves with weapons attached so that it was safe, but yet the detail was there. So like stunt things. So but that's about it. That's all that really comes to mind at the moment.
So Scare USA, you guys are doing so much. Is there anything else going forward that Scare USA is sort of getting its tentacles into that you want to talk about?
Well, it's top secret.
Let me rephrase that you can talk about.
That I can talk about. Yes and no. I mean, we've got our upcoming season here in just about a week, and I mean, my mind is wrapped around that till we open. We are going to be dabbling a little bit with some extra openings throughout like wintertime and springtime. We're going to do a little bit more of a open attractions. But yeah, I mean, personally, we've got another team that's developed for a different attraction that isn't even scary related. So that's something that I've been working on for the last 3 years. It's not Scary USA related, but it's the team, and it's a very similar formula. It's just not scary.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me ask you this. I asked this of a lot of my guests, but I just like to see who I'm working with, so to speak. So you have. It seems to me, obviously, that you have a very particular interest in horror, and you have since you were a child. For you, what is it about horror that is so fascinating? And ultimately, does it seem to you that horror is a big unifier of sorts, sort of hitting on the point we made earlier about the word care being in scare?
It's a very interesting genre. I don't exactly know why I'm so attracted to it. I like the experience I get from it. Even when I was young, watching horror films, I enjoyed to be scared. It's really hard to scare me, as I'm sure it is for a lot of haunt owners. It's very hard to scare me nowadays, but I'm an artist. I used to paint like pretty stuff, like mountains and things like that when I was in school. But then when I would go home, I'd open up my sketchbook, and what would I draw? I would draw zombies. I don't know why. I really enjoyed like fall, the whole atmosphere when you're outside with the leaves falling. You've got pumpkin carving. Every time I smell a Sharpie, I'm reminded of pumpkin carving, because I would take that Sharpie, I would draw my face on the pumpkin and carve it out. So it's a memory right there. My mother did a good job when we were kids just with trick-or-treating. So it was really the experience, I think, that really enhanced it all for me. But I feel like the genre horror, it's so fun to watch people's reactions. And haunted houses and haunted attractions and any like Halloween themed amusements, it's just like a roller coaster. You get their facial reactions. That's what's worth it. The adrenaline rush that, as maybe a performer, I get from making people react a certain way. That's what keeps me going, keeps me coming back. Obviously, I like to help people out, so that's another like avenue. But I do believe like the genre of horror might bring people together because I try to put people around me that are like me. So I bring a lot of artists and creative people around me. So as a group, I think we come together because we can collectively express our whatever it is we're feeling, even if it's through art or through creating props. Maybe it's being an actor, an actress, really just disguise the limits. But what I've noticed is that the people around me, they don't just use it for an outlet like that. They use it as an escape, as a release. Some of them need it. And I think this genre of horror is just an excuse to do this kind of stuff because we like to see people scared. We like to make scary stuff. We love blood. Like it's just it's in our DNA now. It's hard to get rid of it. So once you've got it, you can't get rid of it. So I think everybody, once you start doing it, you either got it or you don't. And a lot of the people that have tried it, it's just, I don't know if you personally have tried this stuff, but once you're in it, man, it's just, it's different. It's different than like a comedy movie. Like that's fun and all, right? Action movies, okay, fine, whatever. That's a genre too. But horror, come on, horror will never ever die.
Oh yes, and thankfully for that, because if it did, I wouldn't have a job.
That is true.
And it's interesting. This is probably kind of tacky humor on my part, but please correct me if I'm wrong. But I heard somewhere that was it the most amount of serial killers in the United States came from either Minnesota or Wisconsin. So it's good that you have that outlet, so you're only making fake scares and not actually like stepping over that line and becoming the horrors that you portray. So
right, yeah, it does seem like
I think it's the cold.
I have no idea. It does seem like every 25 years there is another major headline with there's a lot of killers out there in the world, but the most popular ones, you are not wrong. It just seems like Wisconsin capitalizes on it, and it becomes somewhat of a profitable thing because people don't just know Wisconsin for like what is it? The Green Bay Packers, the cheese. I mean, help me out here.
Cheese, bratwurst.
Yeah, sure, and people that kill people, right?
Right. Because wasn't Ed Gein from Wisconsin, or was he from? Or was he actually from Texas? Because the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is loosely based on that.
Yeah. No, Ed Gein was from, I believe it was Plainfield, Wisconsin. And a lot of the films out there today, and this might be something you can speak to a film buff about, but yeah, I mean, Texas Chainsaw Massacre was inspired by, what else was there? American Psycho, I think, was inspired by Ed Gein.
There were several. There was Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then they actually made a biopic about Ed Gein. But I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, I would even think like Rob Zombie. His films are a little inspired by Ed.
Mm-hmm. Yes, some of the imagery of Rob Zombie's films, definitely. You sort of wonder. There's horror, and then there's Rob Zombie horror, and you wonder what's wrong with that poor soul. And I'm saying that I'm a 1,000-year-old vampire, and I've seen a lot of horrible things.
Yeah. Well, and Rob Zombie's definitely got his own taste too. He's different than some of your other filmmakers, in my opinion.
And since we're on the subject, do you have a particular favorite horror director?
I would probably put Rob Zombie up there.
Really?
Just because he's very artistic and creative, and he doesn't really limit himself. I noticed that a lot of like film directors, and maybe this is just me thinking a little inside the box, that everybody's so they're walking on thin ice, and Rob Zombie doesn't seem to care. Like, he's going to do it, and if somebody says he can't, he's still going to find a way to do what he wants, and that's it. And I respect that because in my eyes, art is art. Yes, there needs to be limitations because you don't want to offend the general public or the majority of. But I love Rob Zombie. I loved him since I was a kid. He used to have art on his CDs. So once he started doing filmmaking, I think he was probably one of my biggest role models, you could say. I also liked, let me think here, there's a couple different guys. I don't really remember their names. I just remember the movies. I know I loved Wes Craven, the Scream movies, you name them. Everything that he's done has always been really spot on. And a couple of the directors out there have helped shape the way people see the horror industry. And while somebody like Rob Zombie might be changing it up a bit, that's okay because transitioning is still there. But I think people like Wes Craven, and I'm trying to think of the other guys. I'm having a brain fart. But
that's totally fine. It's interesting that you talk about Rob Zombie. I have seen some of Rob Zombie's films. I do like him. I just know that there seems to be a very vigorous debate in the horror community about Rob Zombie. Because I know some people have still not quite gotten over his own rendition of the Halloween franchise, and
right.
And I'll be honest, I have not actually seen his Halloween films, although I've seen The Devil's Rejects and I saw Lords of Salem. And I do think that he's definitely a very talented filmmaker. And his brand of horror is very, like you said, it's very distinct. It's very unique. But I know that you're in some circles, you sort of have to be careful of dropping the Rob Zombie name because you never know what kind of response you're going to get from someone else.
Oh, right, yeah. And I'm very open when it comes to talking about topics like that. And I could see why other horror buffs might not appreciate him as much. But the Halloween movies, yeah, the remake, in my opinion, it felt like he was just thrown into making that. Like, he felt obligated. And I can't speak for him. That's just something that I saw from maybe the outside and critics and everybody else that was talking. But as far as his art goes, House of a Thousand Corpses, I think that was my favorite just because of the set. And I like to relate to that kind of stuff because I create that stuff too. And he put his heart and soul into that. And all the other films seemed to, like Lords of Salem, that kind of dropped off for me. I wasn't really a fan of that one. But I'm trying to think. I'm looking forward. Doesn't he have another one, 3 from Hell, coming out soon?
Yes, I can't remember what the release date is, but I've been sort of following that because I want to see it. I'd like to see a conclusion to that trilogy.
Is it? Yeah, it's a trilogy. So I would be curious to see how he closes off the characters there, if he does.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I respect him because he is artistic and he's got his own music. He's still on tour and he has time to make films, and he's really making a statement in the horror industry, which, you know what, if people are going to criticize him, then could they do better? Are they doing anything about it? That's really the question I would have for people who are cutting him down.
So, speaking of artistry, you had said earlier that you yourself, you are an actor, you are an entertainer yourself, apart from being the owner of Scare USA. I was wondering if maybe really quick we could talk a little bit about your career and if you yourself have actually had the privilege of making it into some horror films.
Horror films? No, you know what? I have not yet. We've done a couple shorts. I've maybe been, there's a couple short films that I was not featured in, but I was in there with a couple one-liners. But I've always been the guy behind the scenes. Through the theater gigs, I did a lot of stage managing gigs over my years too. So everything I've done has always been behind the scenes. I do some acting, but a lot of times I'm behind a mask. As a child, even into my adulthood, I've been more introverted. Mm-hmm. But that extrovert side comes out when I feel comfortable, and I definitely feel comfortable in a costume. But I will let you know as soon as I end up in a horror film. You'll be the first one I tell.
Oh, great. Absolutely. And we'll definitely have you come back. But I have to say, How does your introverted side feel about being interviewed by a vampire?
I don't know. We seem to be okay right now because I'm comfortable with what I'm talking about, so that's okay. But good one.
Fair enough. Well, we're going to sort of wrap things up, but before we go, I just want to give you a chance to tell us where to go to follow Scare USA and all of the other platforms that you've talked about this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have an upcoming season here. We open exactly about 2 weeks now. September 27th, and we're going to run our dates all the way through November 2nd on Fridays and Saturdays. And you can get your tickets at scareusa.com. We have a sponsor this year, Aspire Real Estate Group. They've been our headline sponsor. Very fortunate. They're looking forward to next season as well. But all the information you can get directly on scareusa.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, ScareUSA, myself, John Schwartz Jr., on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook.
All right, and we will be sure to have all of these links in the show notes page of this episode. John, thank you so much for appearing with us here this evening, and I really enjoyed our conversation. And at any point, whenever you get into that horror film we talked about, we'd love to have you back. And also, if your account is ever in the area, I'll be sure to give you a visit at Lakeshore.
All right. That sounds good. Thank you so much for having me.
And that is all the time that we have, Spooks and Spookettes. But be sure to join us next time for yet another feature of fright. But until then, as far as things go, when things go bump in the night,
there are such things.
Want to help the show grow? Well, you can start by leaving us a review on iTunes. Go to your iTunes account, click on Podcasts, type in Count Rahun's Feature of Fright. Once you hit the main page, go to Ratings and Reviews, and click Write a Review. The more reviews we get, the higher we move up in the iTunes rankings, and the closer we get to world domination. Thank you, Spooks and Spookettes.